I'm busy, like, I don't know what. This crazy president's causing all kinds of problems in our community, in our countries, but we'll get through it.
You don't know, like, what's the things that are going on kinda right now?
Well, now he's talking about so those of us who have, um, dual citizenships, he's
Mhm.
talking about canceling your American citizenship because you have dual countries, dual citizenship. I mean, just stuff right out of Nazi Germany. It's just
Yeah.
I never thought I'd see this day in my life. So it's pretty crazy.
You know, it was so my family, they're, my mom's side of the family, they're born and raised in St. Thomas.
Mm,
And one of the things he was trying to do before the end of his first term was to get rid of their citizenship. And that was really frustrating for me because then it's like, I mean, my mom's lived here most of her life, but she's still, you know, a United States Virgin Island citizen. So what does
right,
that mean for her?
right, right, exactly.
Or most of the family lives in the States now. So, like,
Uh-huh.
what does that mean for all of them? Does that
Yeah,
mean that they all have to move back to Ireland and they
exactly.
have kids and they have families and they have jobs?
That's right. That's right. That's right. The ripple effect is tremendous. It's the ripple effect is just amazing, the disruption it could cause.
Yeah, and that creates, I mean, that creates a lot of chaos in itself because we're talking about, like, I know that Maya, her family lives dual citizenship in Panama,
That's right.
and what do they do then? But we're talking small scale, but what do a lot of people don't know just how many people that live here come from who have dual citizenship
That's right.
or come from places like the US Virgin Islands. I was just um having a meeting with someone to be on the podcast and she is originally from Barbados.
Mm,
And it's just like you really don't realize how many people live here
right.
that it would affect.
Absolutely. So many. There are so many. But I think he's targeting I think they're targeting, especially people of color, like people
Yes.
from nations of color. I think that's what they're really doing.
Yeah.
But they couch it as this general thing, but that's what it really is.
I mean, that goes back into when we talk about the immigration
Right.
things that are kind of going on and how they're really focused on Hispanics, but they're not really focused on people immigrating from Russia or other, countries. They're really focused on the color
That's
aspect of
exactly right.
immigration
They
and
are.
not really that's really from a social aspect, that's been really something that's been really hard for me to watch. And I when this originally happened, when the election happened, and then his first his first week was just like really chaotic. I remember talking to some of my friends in the military about it, because I'm in the Navy Reserves right now. I have a month, one 1 month left. I'm beyond excited to kind of just
Be done.
be done. I started under the Trump administration and unfortunately I'm ending under it, but I remember, having a conversation with some of my people who I thought were my friends in the military about the real detrimental effects that his original first week actions could be and what a lot of people were predicting.
Mhm.
And when you were talking about, like, Nazi Germany, that was one of the things I said because one of my friends were like, "Well, I don't want these criminals and these drug lords coming into my town." And I was like, "That's ironic." And he's a state trooper. And I was like, "That's ironic because most of them don't come into this country because they want to sling drugs. Most of this come to this country because they're trying to get away
Exactly right.
from drugs."
Right. That's right.
Um and I was like, this is setting up to we are on the path to be like Germany and to have concentration camps. And he was so upset at me. I was like, that would never happen. You
Yeah.
know, we're not like that. And I'm like, look at what's existing. I mean, even what they did, which is now so pushed down because every step that he makes is more extreme and more extreme that you forgot about some of the steps because now they don't feel the same. But he tried to erase African American history in the military. He tried to erase the Tuskegee Airmen in the military. He wants to get rid of DEI in the military. He wanted to get rid of sexual harassment, like classes that we have to take in the military. He got rid of female people of color leaderships in the military and replaced them with people who were nowhere near as qualified.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
the craziest part about it to me is that when I look at it and when I talk to most of my coworkers are not people of color.
Mm,
And I'm spoiled because they're amazing, like
mhm.
legitimately amazing, forward thinking. They hate what's going on in the world. And I'm very lucky. I don't have that same thing when I go to drill.
Right.
And they really, really believe what he's saying.
Yes, they do. Yep. That's right. Yep. This is gonna be like you said, this is a very challenging time, especially for young people. That's why
Mhm,
I'm coming out with this new book this year,
mhm,
100 Principles, Lessons from the Overcomers, that will be come out later this year, which gives guidance to your generation about
mhm.
how you guys battle this rightward surge in this nation of authoritarianism. And I hope that it will come out before the midterm elections because you guys got to get out and vote. You got to get out and vote. Make sure your young people get out and vote. So I know you're not going to have an issue with that, but I tell my kids and grandkids you got to get out and vote. So hopefully it will do that.
Alright, so we are going to launch into the opening right now. I'm dead. So, quick question. Have you ever opened your to-do list, looked it dead in the face, and then immediately decided that reorganizing your desktop, deep diving on YouTube, or starting a completely unrelated side quest was actually the better life choice? Yeah, same. And that's exactly why this week on Basically Unbothered, we're talking about something that doesn't yell at you to wake up at 5 a.m. or just be more disciplined like some productivity drill sergeant. We're talking about A Pinch of Productivity, the secret sauce for motivation by Don Turner. Because instead of shaming you into being productive, it gives you the pinch framework: pressure, interest, novelty, challenge, and humor. Translation: you're not lazy, your brain is just bored. This is about learning how to work with your brain instead of fighting it so you can actually finish the things you keep putting off without turning your life into a boot camp montage. So, if your motivation bar has been sitting at low HP for a little too long, go check out A Pinch of Productivity wherever books are sold. And maybe, just maybe, we'll finally finish one task before starting five new ones. Hello, 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 guys. Welcome to another episode of Basically Unbothered. Today, I am joined by Robert. Robert, do you want to say hi to everybody? Introduce yourself a little bit?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Robert L. Wallace. I am a eight-time author. I've started a couple of tech businesses in IT and energy. Dabbled in politics. Raised a family of 5 kids and 12 grandchildren. So I've kind of been around a bit. So, but glad to be here on the show.
Well, I'm so happy to have you here. I mean, first of all, you have so many accomplishments under your belt. Eight times author is insane. I don't think people even realize the statistics of how few people have been able to reach that milestone. I am a three-time author myself. I write fiction, and even that puts me, we see all these big authors, Dan
Right.
Browns and Nicholas Sparks and all these people, even Jay Shetty, who probably working on a 3rd or 4th or whatever, and we think that that's the norm, but reality, most of the times, people don't even get to their 1st book, let alone to their 8th book.
Very
So that's
true.
an amazing accomplishment, and then you
Thank
said that
you.
you started 3 companies as well?
Right, absolutely. We started an IT services company about 40 years ago. We started an
Mhm,
energy company in solar and wind battery engineering about 20 years ago. And we
mhm,
started Robert Wallace Media about the same time that my second book was published. So
mhm,
we're now looking at doing a film company that will generate films based upon the overcomers. And that's my new book is also called The 100 Principles of the Overcomers, which chronicles people who have overcome all of
mhm,
the racism, sexism, classism, colorism, all the isms, and still went on to be very successful. And the idea here is to produce movies that reflect that overcoming
mhm.
process.
You don't know this about me, but I actually have a background in film production. I love
Really? Wow.
movies.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to high school, Detroit School of Arts. I went there for radio and TV production. I also went to a vocational school, which was kinda weird because I went to an art school and then they sent me to vocational school for the same thing. Um, but it was a great opportunity. I got to interview, um they're like air race pilots. I got to interview them. I've gotten to do things
Hmm.
on the Tuskegee Airmen because we have a
Oh, wow.
Tuskegee,
Sure,
school here in Detroit.
sure.
I've been able to go to the media week for, the auto show here, and I've actually been able to record and participate in recording for us the NAACP Fight for Freedom Fund dinner.
Wow. Uh-huh,
So
uh-huh.
so when I
Excellent.
was and these were all when I was a kid. Adult me realized that as much as I loved film, the industry that it was at the time was not where I wanted to be. Um, and now I just kind of use my skills for social media, which works
Excellent.
just fine for me.
It does,
But,
it does. I may be
um,
calling you. I may be calling you. I may need some
let
help.
my mom my mom would be like my mom's dream, how most parents are like, "Be a teacher, be a
Right,
doctor," right? My mom
right.
was like, "I want you to be in film." So, she would
Really? Oh
be
my.
she was so when I switched to psychology, she was not like the normal, the one of the degrees that you can get almost any kind of job in. She was
Right.
like, "Why are you leaving film? You need to go back." And it's hilarious. She actually birthed 2 creative people, so I write books, obviously, and do film and a lot of other things. And my brother has his master's in graphic design and marketing.
Wow.
And he's working on
Fantastic.
trying to get another master's right now. So
Well, fan I may be calling you for help.
her but starting a film company, that's really exciting. So are all the businesses still existing?
If they do, I don't run them
Mhm.
more. I've got people
Mhm.
that run them. I'm chairman of the board, so I
Mhm.
oversee what's going on. But yes, yeah, I've always desired to build these to pass them on to either my kids or to the next generation, and we've
Mhm.
put a good team of primarily young people,
Mhm.
that can take it from here, and that's what I've always wanted to do, and we will continue to try to do that.
I love that. That's one of the things. I don't have kids and I don't have any plans on having them, just the way that my life is set up
Uh-huh.
right now. But my friends have kids. So I've always envisioned that the things that I'm building, I can one day give to
Amen. That's right.
someone else. I don't
That's
I
right.
don't I don't like the concept of just building it for myself. I like the concept of building it to
Amen. Same here.
keep it going. Yeah.
That's right. Same here. Absolutely.
I think that just, there's always a conversation about generational wealth, and that is one of the topics that is mentioned a lot right now, but they don't talk about how to really overcome that. And one of the ways is what you were doing is starting businesses, keeping those businesses going. By the way, my goal is to start the business and then have someone else run it. And, and then I can kind of be like you, the board chairman, and still get to make sure all the operations and things are going in the
Absolutely.
direction. Um,
Absolutely.
but I don't necessarily need to run it at a certain point, and that's another mindset that a lot of people, forget, is that, like, the way to continue this growth is that
Mhm.
eventually you have to give this to someone.
That is correct. Very good. If you learned that lesson at your age, you're way ahead of the game, my friend.
Well, I would like to thank my parents. My
You're
parents,
you're good parents.
I do. I really do. I'm very grateful. They instilled me with really special skill set that I think is really important. Some of it is, my parents are divorced, so I grew up with, like, a single mom, and my mom works. She's actually Maya's mom's best friend, and they
Really?
met.
Oh,
Yep. Mhm. And that's how me and Maya became so close, is because our parents worked together,
sure.
and they became best friends, and then because they were best friends and they had kids around the same age, we all hung out. And
Wow.
then Maya and I got so close, and we're like, we're like sisters. We're sisters, and it it was very productive for me as a Afro-Caribbean female to watch another Afro-Caribbean female work as hard as, I mean, obviously, as a kid, there was a lot of things that kind of felt like I wasn't getting everything, but
Sure.
as an adult, I look back on it and it's like my work ethic comes directly from watching my mom do everything that she did.
Amen. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, I am super, super grateful and thankful for that. And then you said that you have your new book coming out. So will your new book make you be 8 or 9?
So that would be 9.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
that
And
would
you
be
said that that one's about overcoming.
yeah, it's called the 100 Lessons from the Overcomers, How
Mhm,
to Defeat Authoritarianism in America.
mhm,
And it's a book that's written primarily for young people like you, your generation.
mhm,
And the way it got started after Trump won the second election, my I have 12 grandkids, 4 of them in college. And my
mhm,
one granddaughter who's in college, actually 2 of them, would call
mhm,
me up and said, "Pop, pop." I mean, she was in tears. She was totally upset. She said, "I can't believe our country has put this man in charge of our country." She said, "What's going on?" And she was very distraught, very depressed about what had happened. And I
mhm.
tried to comfort her. And I said, "Honey, we as a people, we've been here before.
Yeah.
Over we've overcome these kinds of movements in America over
Mhm,
400 years." And she said, "Well, yeah, Papa, but my generation doesn't know about these things." And that was
mhm,
the idea. The light went on. Okay, then I need to spend a year putting together, through my experience, through my grandparents, my parents, my great grandparents, from all the successful people of color and women I know who overcome all of the
mhm,
isms, right? And then to portray that to the next generation, hey, and say, hey, hey, Maya and Gabby and others and Taylor and Jordan, all my kids, this is how we did it. These are the things that we learned. These are the
mhm.
principles that we employed to help us to overcome these things. You guys need to learn these principles and apply them in this generation, in this time. And that's what the book is about.
I think the statement about her saying, they're my generation, we don't really know this. It was interesting because I when I joined the Navy, I was 26 and I was around a whole bunch of 17, about to be 18, because the rule is like you have to turn 18 before you graduate um, from boot camp, 18, 19-year olds. And
Wow.
I remember I they made me class leader because I was older than almost everybody. And that drove me crazy because I didn't really have to work with the generation directly under me. I
Mm,
primarily existed around millennials, and we're talking about people who are 7 years, probably 8, because my birthday, I turned 27 that year, so younger than me. and, it was a whole new ballpark, and, I was talking about Black History Month, and these were all white. There was one Hispanic woman, but the rest of them were white men, and they're like, "We don't learn that in school." And I said, "What do you that's a r" and I grew up in an urban area, so I didn't understand. I said, "What do you mean? That's a requirement. What do you guys do for Black History Month?" And they're like,
Right, right.
"Nothing."
Nothing.
I was like, "So y'all didn't learn about a new
Right.
person
That's right.
every day for Black History Month?"
That's
Like, I
right.
remember in elementary school learning about a new person every single day for Black History Month,
Absolutely.
and they're like, "Yeah, we don't do that anymore." And that's crazy to me because my dad is born in '59, right? So he's born around the time Jim Crow laws still exist. That's my
Absolutely.
dad.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's just a generation or 2 ahead of me, right?
Exactly right. That's right. That's right.
And you mean that the generation directly under me doesn't even realize that it's not 300 years ago, it's 60, 70, 80 years ago.
Absolutely. And that's the history that this man in the White House is trying to erase. Because if I can erase the contributions that the people have made to a nation, then I minimize their input. I can really help the nation to forget them. Right. And so we have to fight back against that. And that's why I felt this book was so important to get out now before the midterm elections, right? So that your
Mhm.
generation has something that it can study and look at and say, hey, okay, we can use some of the strategies that have been successful over decades, over the
Right,
century.
because what's happening right now isn't new, it's literally just playing off of
That's
Nazi Germany playbook,
that's right. It's
almost
not,
to a T.
that's right. It's not new.
And, like, that's the crazy part, there's a quote, and I can't remember, but it was like, "They came for the Jews, and I said nothing because it wasn't me,
Uh-huh.
and they came for the Polish, and I said nothing because" and they, keep going, "They came for the mother and the children, then they said it
And they
wasn't
came
me, and
for
I
him,
didn't care, and then they came for me."
and
And a
nobody
lot of
left
there
to
was no one
speak.
left to say anything,
Right.
and that's what people don't realize is that specifically in being a minority, there's an interconnectedness that we all share that maybe there's varying degrees, and I always talk about, like, people wanting to have white proximity, and that's one of the most detrimental things for minorities in general, and now we're seeing that in the media. I don't know if you've kept up with celebrities who are Black celebrities who are now backing Trump.
Yeah, I
Uh,
have.
Nicki Minaj is one of them, and it's the I never liked her personally, so that one
Me
didn't
either.
hurt me.
Me either.
I've never I've never vibed with her. She's never had anything to say about the
Yeah.
world that I was like, "Oh, this is quite intelligent." You to
Right.
me,
Right.
she's kind of always contributed to a negative narrative about
Yes, she
Black women,
has.
specifically Black women bodies, and if you follow her story, she literally changed her whole body to fit into, like, Jezebel category. She had all of these surgeries just to play into this,
Right.
and it contributed negative to women in rap in general because now
It did.
women in rap have to have a certain body type for them to make it,
Right.
and but now, Chili from TLC has come in support of Trump, and my mom and I and her friends were having a conversation because they wanted to go to the R&B concert that they're throwing, and a lot of them were like, "We're not going anymore." And my mom said, she's like, "So you're just not gonna go to this concert that you probably been waiting for your whole life for, like, a reunion tour, um, because of this?" And they're like, "Yeah. No, like, we don't wanna"
Absolutely.
like, that's where it has to be now, is that you have to put and I'm not the perfect proponent of this. I shop at places I'm not supposed to shop. I admit that. I'm knowledgeable about it and I'm cautious about it. I don't spend I've learned workarounds to spend most of my money somewhere else, and I've
Right.
made a conscious effort to spend a lot of my money in smaller stores
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and support small businesses. But yeah, when someone comes, especially when they come outright, because now they, some of these companies sneak and back and we report it. But when you're coming outright, you that is so damaging to your society that you are a part of, and also the people who are watching you, looking
Mm,
up to you.
mhm.
And when you're talking about young people, unfortunately, we live in a society where celebrity is the god, right? It's the
Right.
king. It's the thing that
It
we
is,
worship more than
unfortunately.
anything else. It
Unfortunately.
unfortunately, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I love my celebrities. People know people know that I love my celebrities, but I have never been in a place where I think that my celebrities aren't human and I
Right,
can't walk away from them.
right,
I've walked away from I used to love Neo growing like the amount of love I had for this man was crazy. And now I look at what he does and I'm like,
mm,
I can't support him
right,
as much as I love his music. And I mean, I'll listen to the parts that I love. I can't change those parts of me, but I never keep in my mind that this celebrity can do no wrong. They can, and if they do, as much as it hurts, as much as it feels like a betrayal, I'm gonna move on.
right. I wish there were more like you, and more young people who feel that way. And oftentimes, celebrities are not the best role models,
Mm-mm,
for young people. But like you said, there's that lure, there's that attraction, to the flashiness and glitter and the money. And I think it is corrupting to a lot of young people.
mm-hmm. I 100% agree with you. I mean, I think that that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast in the first place is that I wanted to share my opinions because I have a lot of them, but I wanted to give listeners a way, or people in general, a way to dial into what's going on and dial into topics that maybe they've never been introduced to in a way that will entertain them because we still live in the world that we live in and entertainment is an important I mean, like, I even my fiction books have very important themes in them, but they're still around, the world of entertainment, and that's why I wanted to get into film, is I I love when films say something about society or books says something about society, but you're also entertained. So that's why I love, like, sci-fi genres. Ready Player One is one of my favorite books, and it's has a lot to say about the consumption of media and how media's taken over and without creating regulations, what it can do to society. And I want to be whatever medium I can do that in, I want to be
Mm,
able to provide that for people that are my generation, younger than my generation, to really stop and listen to me like, oh, there's other ways to be and to think. And I didn't know that this thing exists and I could really, you know, like I just recorded an episode about financial freedom and how you don't have to live in the 9 to 5 structure. And a lot of people have been convinced that that's the only way to live.
very true.
And, I want to provide people a way to, like with your book, to be able to listen and hear and see other perspectives and other parts of life and know that there's more out there than just what's in front of them in their screen.
That's correct. Absolutely. I hope they're listening to you.
I I hope so too. for many for many reasons, but I do hope so too. The amazing thing about this social media world that we live in though is that you get direct feedback.
Yes,
And so
true.
one of my favorite things is to post clips onto social media and look
Uh,
at the comments. And
okay.
I ignore most comments cuz most of them are stupid and silly, and I've learned over the years to have tough skin. Um but I love the ones where they really get it and they
And
say
many
things
people
like
do.
they
Many
do.
people do. Right. And many people, with a lot of people, if you build it, they will come. You just
Yeah.
got to build it. You know what I mean? Build like you built this platform with your
Mhm.
podcast and your books. You build it, and the good people will come. That's the
Mhm.
encouraging point.
Yeah. We are going to hop off of that real quick and get into some pop culture roundups. Indie authors are out here building worlds, breaking rules, and telling stories you won't find on the bestsellers list. And not only can indie authors do it just as good as published authors, but they can often do it better. On Indie Ink podcast, we interview indie authors every month about their books, their process, and what keeps them going when no one's watching.
One of the best pieces of advice I received, once you start getting negative reviews, it means that your book is reaching outside of your target audience. And when she said that, I thought that was such a wonderful way to look at it.
Jean-Paul Sartre, he's French, with No Exit says that hell is other people. Like, to be in hell is to be like with other people. The thesis of this book, or like what I thought about when I thought about like what would be like the ultimate hell for me personally.
If you love stories behind the stories, this podcast is for you. Check out Indie Ink Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts.
Sure.
I always tell people I have a little jingle because I think that jingles should come back. If there's anything from my generation that I want back, or jingles, we're on the same thing. They're entertaining. They brought you in, and they were really great ways of like marketing.
That's true.
There's still jingles that I will remember to this day, or like little phrases. Like I'm never going to forget Frosted Flakes. I don't even eat Frosted Flakes anymore. I have grown my consumption of cereal to like what I like to call adult cereal.
Right.
But I'm always going to remember that. Or even the Kool-Aid
Sure.
guide.
Absolutely. They
But
work. Jingles work.
They do. And bring them back, because now what's happening is that and I'm not like there are people who really don't like AI, and I'm not that. I think that technology is technology, and what matters is the hands and the rules that it has, and not necessarily the potential. Like there has to be regulations about it. But people are making there's AIs now that for people to make jingles out of your text messages. And I'm like, hey guys, there's a new space that you could fill in right here. People want jingles back. So start making jingles for people again, because people think that like everybody just craves AI to do it. But really, we as human beings still crave authenticity.
Yes.
And that interaction of having someone work with you and to bounce ideas and to create something that you didn't even think could happen.
Yes.
But on our first topic, we're talking about US birth rates. And this has also been something that was interestingly went a little viral recently, but the US birth rates hit a record low as nearly half of 30-year-old women remain childless. And I don't know if you saw the news clip of someone kind of like commenting on the birth rate. And their comment went viral because they were saying 15 to 19-year-olds aren't having kids.
Right.
And just kind of that concept that they want to not, maybe that's not what he intended, but the concept of you want to bring back like teen pregnancies to keep the birth rate going up, because he was saying, and everything that he was saying were things that women are beginning to be raised on, is like, you don't have to start so early in your life. You can follow your careers. You don't have to settle down for the first person that you meet. Do you think from your lens that this birth rate decline says something about what's going on in society right now?
Oh, it certainly does. I mean, there is, Gabby, a direct correlation between how society is performing economically to the birth rate. So in other words, if people are in an affluent position or a prospering position, they will tend to have more children. When they're struggling economically, they will tend to have less children. And this is a global issue. This is not just the U.S., and especially in the global North, right? There's declining birth rate. It has been for a long, long time, versus the global South, which is where primarily the nation where there are people of color are living. I think even in America, if you were to break out the birth rates among different groups, I think you find a difference there as well. I think you find more birth rates among communities of color than you do European communities. But there certainly is a correlation between the economy and being economically secure and having children. Additionally, like you said, Gabby, I mean, the fact of the matter is, young women, including my daughters and my granddaughters, they're waiting to get married. They're waiting to have families.
Mhm.
They're not in my generation. We got married. We got married, after either high school or after college. Now young women and young men too,
Mhm.
they're waiting, and there's no pressure on them to have kids. No pressure to get married. So I think that has an effect on it as well. I am not as concerned about that as some people might be. I think
Mhm.
of people in this nation and world that we have enough person power to do what needs to be done to build this economy, build the country. But yeah, that's what it is. It's a direct correlation between economic prosperity or economic security and have
Mhm.
children and childbirth.
I think that it's a hard thing to kind of feel as a woman sometimes because
Uh-huh.
it makes it seem as if the world's issues or this country's issues is on our backs. And,
Right.
for
Right.
us trying to decide that we wanted to choose when we start a family and we want to, we want to be the reality is that divorce rates are still really high.
They are high. They sure are.
And s- and so if I'm getting married young, which is I've always said that for some people it really works when you understand the dynamics of what it really takes to have a marriage
Sure.
and growing with someone
Sure.
else. The difference is I've had a conversation about this. The difference between like what a 20-year-old looks for in a relationship these days and what a 30-year-old looks for in a relationship is different. Most 20-year-olds are looking for fun and excitement, which is what they should be doing. And then when you get in your 30s, you're like, I want a partner that has these values and I want a partner and some 20-year-olds have that instilled in them already, and I love that, right? Um, but just kind of like the concept that all of that falls on us and we get married, the likelihood of us getting divorced is crazy high. What do we do after that? What do women do after that?
Well, I think that more women, like you said, are not falling into that trap, and they
Mhm.
are looking at their dreams and their vision and how they're going to be the best they can be. Because
Mhm.
oftentimes, as you said, women have been marginalized in our society and in the world, for that matter. But there's another piece of this, though, Gabby, that may be
Mhm.
controversial, but I'm going to say it because when I ran for mayor of Baltimore City, I said it in a
Mhm.
campaign, and some people didn't like it. Um, but the other trend that's happening is that a higher percentage of
Mhm.
children, especially African American children, are being born to single parent households. Now, in my view and in view of sociologists, that's a problem
Mhm.
because it is difficult to raise a child with a single parent. Not impossible, not impossible at all. I mean, you're an example of examples, my family and all that. It's not impossible.
Mhm.
But studies have shown that a child that is born with two adults in around them, whether they are married or not, but two adults. I mean, look, we raised five kids, and my wife
Mhm.
are both engineers. And
Mhm.
I'll tell you something: when she had to travel for her job, and I had to take care of the five kids, it was
Mhm.
tough. It was, and I thought
Yeah.
about it. I said, imagine if I had to be this single parent for five kids for all the time. I mean, that would be very, very stressful. And so,
Mhm.
and so I think that there is a reality, there's a trend moving in that direction, which I think we need to look at as a society and see what impact that has.
I people call like success stories from single parents and not success stories. I gained a lot of information from my parents, but I definitely struggled because when you're a kid, you mirror your parents,
You do.
especially when you're young. When
Amen.
you reach when you reach your teenage years, that's when you start experimenting
Amen.
and trying to learn things. But when you're a kid, you mirror your parents. And when you don't have a positive relationship to look up to, whether you like it or not, that affects
It
how you
does.
grow up.
It does, Gabby. It does. It does. And we've taught our kids, our 5 kids, and now our 12 grandkids. We have a pretty clear mantra, and that is, be careful who you marry,
Yeah.
right? Because who you marry can either double your impact on life, right,
Mhm.
or cut it in half, right? They can either enhance you to do what you need to do, or they can detract from you being successful. I tell people all the time, if it wasn't for my wife, who
Mhm.
is a accomplished engineer, a scientist, successful in corporate America, was making lots of money, very well respected. If it wasn't for her,
Mhm.
I could not have done the things I've been able to do in my life. And that's why I caution young people, if you're going to get married, be
Mhm.
careful who you marry, because he or
Yes.
she can either raise you up or they can tear you down. And
I
I've seen
agree
it
with
time
you.
and time again.
I unfortunately have a friend who's no longer here anymore. And I think that she got married young,
Mhm.
and I think she really did honestly try to pick with more perspective than most young people do. She knew that she wanted security financially. She knew that she really didn't want to work, and that's her right. That's,
Yep, so right. Yep, sure is.
so she found a partner who she thought would be able to provide for her in the ways, and she communicated the ways in which she wanted to be provided for, and they grew up and they grew different, and things changed, and I do think that her marriage contributed to her not being here anymore.
Does she have
Um,
kids, Gabby? Does she have kids? No kids.
no, it was one of the things that was, really hard because she kept having miscarriages, and then she did IVF, and,
Mhm.
I when I was younger, I wanted kids, and I tried to have kids with the person I was in a relationship, and thank Moses, because neither of us were ready, and I don't think that we would have made good parents with each other.
Damn.
Um, but I also believe that, I had, like, a medium on here, and she said something about, like, your kids know when you're not in the right position sometimes,
Yep. Amen.
and they won't come, and I think that that was a bigger issue, but I 100% agree. Who you marry, who you choose to, whether it's real marriage or, you know, civil union or however you want it to be, I'm a big proponent of the LGBT community, however you want that to look.
Mhm.
Just realize that it will determine a lot for you in your life.
Absolutely. And I would add too, Gabby, what we teach out too is, and this is kind of old school. I mean, you have Caribbean lineage, and so do I. My dad was from
Mhm,
Trinidad and Tobago.
mhm,
Um, the old school way was that when you are dating somebody, right, you would bring that person home to meet mom and dad. And
mhm,
mom and daddy, or even grandmom and granddaddy, they would give you perspective. I can tell you, when I brought my wife home when I was dating, all different kind of women, but when I brought
mhm,
home my wife, and we've been married 48 years, when I brought her
mhm,
home to my mother and father, they loved it. They said, "Boy, don't you let that woman get away." You know what I
mhm,
mean? They were very clear. And so my brothers, all of us would bring our wives home, who women that became our wives,
mhm,
to mom and daddy. Mom and daddy would give us their blessing, or their perspective. And there were some women that brought home, mama would say, "Boy, leave that girl alone. That's not who you want to get hooked up with." And mama was right. So I think that's another resource, that if young people would just use it, assuming you have parents that you trust and respect their judgment.
and
Then
vice versa, that give you the same trust and
that's
respect.
that's right, exactly right. So that's another tool that can be used.
Yeah. I agree. All right, we're going to get into our second topic.
Uh-huh.
There has been a communication. There's a quote that I have here. That's something that's been talked about. And it says, maybe if we underpaid politicians and overpaid teachers, there would be smarter people and less stupid laws.
Amen. No way
What do
moon
you
is
think about this?
Oh man, Gabby, that's right on point. When I ran for mayor of Baltimore, I think I ran for
Hmm.
mayor of Baltimore twice. I ran in
Hmm.
2020 as an independent, and I ran in 2024 as a Democrat,
Hmm.
because Democratic City. And part of my platform, Gabby, had I become mayor, was to move to increase the salaries of teachers. Now,
Mhm.
little side note, my mother was a teacher. My
Mhm.
aunts were teachers. My grandmother was a teacher. I come from a teaching family. I know the sacrifice these women and these men, primarily women, but men too, that they make to these kids. My mother taught special ed kids in Baltimore City for over 30 years. Mama would use
Mm.
her own money to
Mhm.
provide for kids, right? That shouldn't be. And so definitely, if there was a way, Gabby, that I could make that happen, I'd be all over that. The other thing I would do is this for politicians. You mean politicians? I would say if there is ever a shutdown in the
Mhm.
government, politicians and their staff don't get paid either. So if the
Mhm.
government workers don't get paid, politicians and their staff shouldn't get paid. I guarantee you, if we pass that law, there would never be a government shutdown.
I agree with you. So my grandmother and my grandfather were both teachers. My grandmother was a science teacher. My grandfather was a professor at UVI.
Mm.
Um, I found out he taught I love social sciences, and I found out that, he taught, like, sociology and psychology classes, and I was like, "I'm just like my grandpa." And then when I joined the military, I was like, "I'm more like my grandpa." Um, but I have a separate podcast that I do with with a co-host, and it's called Indie Ink Podcast, and we, read fictional indie author books, and we have a conversation about them and invite the author on as well, and, we just had her teacher, one of her English teachers who wrote a book. It was called The Something of Damnation Kane, and I can't remember
Mm.
it. The Journey of Damnation Kane, and it was like a pirate book. And it was so beautiful to see her get to like experience, because now she's an author and her teacher's an author, getting to experience reading, her teacher's book, and her teachers read her book, and seeing that impact. I also had a English teacher, and I went to school in Southfield right outside of Detroit
Uh-huh.
for
Sure.
most of my stuff, and I had a teacher who I like to call was like my Finny. She followed me through through elementary and middle school, and her name was Miss Joyce Johnson. If you ever hear this, Miss Johnson, I love you. But she would pay, like, her class was always decorated, and she was blessed because her husband also worked, and they worked together, and she had a little bit more finances, and she would pay for our school supplies when the public school system didn't have enough paper for
Absolutely.
us. She bought
Absolutely.
us paper. When
Absolutely.
they didn't give her supplies to stock her classroom, she paid for them herself.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I know a lot of teachers, who do that. And I don't want to say that teachers are in it for the money, because clearly they aren't.
No, they're not. No, they're
Le
not.
let me just be really clear.
No, they're not for the
Teachers,
money.
they're not in it for the money, although unfortunately we do end up with teachers who negatively fall into that role because they fell out of something else that they wanted to do,
Sure.
and
Sure. Sure.
that changes the aspect. But I do think that we could have, because we don't not every teacher is amazing, like, I don't wanna pretend
Not at
like
all. Mm.
that's the
Not
truth,
at all.
but I do think we would have more amazing teachers if we increase the pay for them, because
I
there's some
agree.
people who really wanna be teachers,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
they look at their life and they're like, "I can't afford it."
Can't afford it. And I would say, you know, what does that say though, Gabby, about our society? What does it say about
Mhm,
the American society where we're willing to pay politicians so much money and pay
mhm,
teachers so little money? What does that, and all the politicians, they're always say, oh, we're about education and it's important to our society and all that. Okay, put your money where your mouth is. And we don't
mhm,
as a society. So we don't really believe that, but we say it. Now, what's interesting though, Gabby, is that the affluent kids get very good education. So they get
mhm.
top-notch education, the Ivy League and schools like that, they get plenty of money, resources. That's why the wealth gap continues to expand,
Mhm.
because up to well-to-do kids get the advanced education, but the kids, working class kids, don't. So the gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger over time, over each generation. We got to fix that.
You know what was interesting to me? was in my generation, colleges stopped requiring the SAT because there were studies that were shown that the SAT helped contribute to that education gap, and it wasn't a fair and accurate depiction of,
Agreed.
and so they introduced the ACT.
Uh-huh.
Now the ACT is out again somehow, and the
Mm,
SAT is back in. And
that's right.
I was so confused when the younger generations, like my mom's friends' kids, were telling me this, and I'm like, "You're taking the SAT?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "What about the ACT?" And they're like, "Colleges don't
Yep.
take that anymore." And I'm like, "But the whole
That's
point of this was to prevent what's again happening."
absolutely.
And, I think that education should be free at all levels.
I do as well.
I think that's so important for our society because what the quote is saying is true. The reason why the president that we have is the president that we have is because specifically in like southern states and flyover states, the requirement of education is lower.
It is.
They did a study about what states voted for the president and their education level, and usually the lower states voted the most for Trump.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's how we get here is when we're not educating people. Like my dad loves history, and he always used to be, if you don't know your history, you'll be damned to repeat
Repeat
it.
it again. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm blessed because my dad loves history because even when history is my least favorite subject in school. It got boring after a while. And I think that that's the other issue in history in schools right now, is that they don't evolve. Like we learn about Michigan history, then we learn about US history, then we learn
Absolutely.
again about US history. And there's so much more history, even world history focusing on because other countries learn about us specifically
Absolutely.
in history.
Absolutely.
And we don't learn about other major countries
We don't
specifically in history.
because we're arrogant.
And we are. And
Because we're arrogant.
that's how we get to the places where we are now. You don't know what
Absolutely.
happened in Nazi Germany because you probably heard it in school, but no one like you probably spent a month talking about the Holocaust. And then that was the end of it. Or your teacher made you read The Diary of Anne Frank, which everybody should read. I actually have a copy of it myself.
I do as well.
Because
I understand.
is one of the
But
books that I feel
Kathy,
like
here's the thing, though. Here's what young people need to understand, and I think they
Mm,
do. So the powerful in the upper class, I can't find a better word for it, the upper class, right? They had no
mhm,
incentive to improve education for the
mm-mm,
rest of the country, for the rest of the population,
no,
because that's how they stay in power. And so unless you have parents like you have, or like
mhm,
I have, okay, who take
mhm,
responsibility for your education, right? You will be in that same position because the powerful have no incentive unless they are good people and they want to see the country thrive as a nation. But other than
mhm,
that, they have no incentive why their kids are going to do well. Look at President Trump's kids. He was a Trump was a five-time draft dodger. None of his
mhm,
sons ever served in the military. But who do they send to Iran, to Iran to fight war? Working class kids, working class young women and young men. That's who the wars are always fought by because the rich and powerful don't send their kids because
mhm.
they benefit from a society where people are not educated.
Yeah,
That's the
I
reality.
I agree with you, and I think that's why this quote is so important is because there are truly some politicians that I believe really are trying to do the good
Yep,
work out
I
there.
agree. Me too. Mhm.
Um, but especially when we're getting out of the House of Reps and Congress and we're getting into the Senate because Senate makes more. They are trying to keep you willfully ignorant because that keeps all of their secrets, all of
Yep,
their plans,
sure
that
does.
keeps the
Absolutely.
money in the pockets, that keeps their kids who, by the way, are being raised to be entitled. And that's one of the reasons why we have a big work ethic problem in here
We
is
do.
because we we've a lot of people have raised their kids to be entitled and thinks that things should just be given to them. And the
Absolutely.
problem is that the working class who knows that you have to put hard work are being intentionally suppressed. And so you're getting people who are at these high levels who don't even know how to do the work or run the company or do anything. They're just handed it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's one of the most frustrating things I've seen. I worked at and this is something I tell everybody. I worked at a credit union, and I used to sit with the managers and the directors of departments. And this is not a
Uh-huh.
knock on them,
Sure.
but I thought that I was entering into realms of like, they're going to be so much smarter and so much this and me. And then I realized that we were either at the same level or I was higher than them
Same,
in some levels,
same here. Same here.
because they just didn't, they didn't learn how to keep working for it. Once they
Right.
got it, they didn't
Right.
remember that you have to keep doing it. And I used to do training at the credit union, and I had people who were coming in for manager positions, and I cannot make this up, who did not know how to operate the computer.
I understand. I believe that too. But see, Gabby, historically, and your dad
Mhm.
probably shared this with you, the
Mhm.
powerful have always created a wedge between
Mhm.
working class people, right? So
Mhm.
they would create a wedge between black working class people and brown working class people and white
Mhm.
working class people. When all the working class people have the same needs, they got the same issues, the same problems. But
Mhm.
if I can make one group think that they're better
Mhm.
than the other group, then they'll never come together. And because if they ever come together, and this is what Dr. King was trying to do in 1968 before they assassinated him. If you
Mhm.
notice, read his books, he pivoted. He pivoted from social justice to economic justice. And that was the creation of his what he called his poor people's campaign. That was to
Mhm.
bring working class people together, black, white, brown, Asian, bring them together as a group to fight for the same thing. When he made that pivot, that's when they took him out, because they knew if white people and black people and brown people and Asian people come together,
Mhm.
who are struggling economically, if they come together, they can turn this nation around. They can turn things around. So what Trump and people like him do is they create these
Mhm.
wedges, and they got white working class folks thinking they better than other working class people. So the groups never come together. Trump can do what he does with his family, make all his money, his corruption, and get away with it. That's what happens.
Yeah. No, I agree, and it is something that is frustrating to see, and that goes back to kind of what I was talking about, what's happening right now, is the people who are trying to have white proximity because they
And
feel like they buy into the colorism and the racism and everything, and the
they do.
believing that the closer you are to white, the safer you are.
If you are,
And
absolutely.
instead of buying into the fact that we as minorities are all, whether varying degrees for sure, obviously, but we're all still being oppressed in some way or another. And if we all come together, we can end that for all of us. It's
We
not
can.
one, yeah,
We can.
it's not one or the other. It's like all of us.
But the comedian Paul Mooney, Gabby, he coined a
Mhm.
term 40 years ago, and he said it's the illusion of inclusion.
Mhm.
The illusion of inclusion. He said, so
Yeah.
these people you're talking about, they have this illusion, this proximity mentality, that if I
Mhm.
can get close, then I'll be accepted. I'll be, it's this illusion of inclusion. But they find out over time that that's not the case. They're not included, right? They're
Mm-mm.
excluded. But sometimes it takes them a while to learn that.
Yes. All right, we are going to skip one of our topics and get to our little fun pettier facts real quick. Quick pause, because if you love dark stories that don't flinch, Olympic War isn't a soft love story. It's violent, it's chosen, and it costs everything. Through war, betrayal, and survival, Moonstone fights for devotion that refuses to die. This is a Black, multicultural dystopian series about power, sacrifice, and what rises from the ashes. Olympic War and Phoenix War. Read them wherever books are sold. And this week, we're talking about is the concept of living outside of the US really better? So there are a lot of even like Maya, digital nomads, people who are traveling around the world. I've seen in the varying years people who live in Germany, ironically, talking about all of the benefits and things that they have that's better than living in the US. And is it a petty concept that we're just frustrated with what's going on in our country and we just immediately go to, oh, it's better somewhere else, which, the grass is always greener is the concept? Or is there really some validity to the fact that living outside of US might actually be better?
Well, Gabby, I think this trend didn't just start yesterday. I think it started
No.
decades.
Mhm.
Your parents from the Virgin Islands, my parents from Trinidad and Tobago, you know, it was always a situation where um, uh, uh, people who wanted to do better were moving to environments that would allow them to do better. And so you had
Mhm.
your parents migrating to the U.S., my father migrated to the U.S., others who migrated different places there. Once we established a critical mass of working class, I'm sorry, middle class, uh,
Mhm.
to upper class, to affluent people of color, we've always had a global mentality. If you think about it,
Mhm.
many
Mhm.
of us, those who never got a poverty is a little tougher, but those of us who got educated and who traveled the world and saw, we've been traveling. My wife and I, we've done mission work. We've been to probably 100+ countries on the globe so
Mhm.
far. And every place that we've gone, the U.S. government always told us that it's dangerous. Don't go there. All that. In every situation, Gabby, the government was wrong. These countries were very, very welcoming. They were very lots of opportunity, a different perspective on
Mhm.
life and things. And so that perspective is what gives us the comfort, right, to
Mhm.
be able to not only survive but to
Mhm.
thrive in other countries.
Mhm.
And so I'm a witness of that. Me and my wife, we've traveled all over the world and we continue to. And we're very comfortable in any country because of that. So no, I
Mhm.
think it's time. And I think your generation, like you've learned, you and Maya and my daughter Taylor and my
Mhm.
sons, they speak different languages. They speak multiple languages. They can go into
Mhm.
any culture, any country and be comfortable like you and Maya and my daughter Taylor can. So the world is yours. And one of the things I say in this new book that's coming out this year is just that.
Mhm.
And young people, the world is yours. You're not confined to just the U.S. These principles that I'm sharing with you, they apply worldwide. As a matter of fact, some of the principles come from different people in different countries, like Nelson Mandela in South Africa and others who
Mhm.
have the same issue of overcoming isms, but were able to overcome because they applied these principles. So no, Gabby, I think this is a wonderful time to be young, a wonderful time to explore, a wonderful
Mhm.
time to get multiple roots in different countries and cultures. I applaud your generation for that.
I agree. I haven't been as world traveling as I want to, and that's just like a financial thing. Maya keeps keeps being like, "Just come visit me for a week," and I'm like, "I
That's Maya.
promise
Yeah.
you." I was like, "Let me just get," because I've been going through a lot of financial stuff for the last couple of
Sure.
years, and I've been
Sure.
like, "Let me just get my money to like this place
Got you.
and build the things that I'm building," because the things that I'm building, podcasting, I could do that anywhere,
That's
right?
true.
Writing books, I can do that anywhere. Running my
Anyway,
businesses, I can do that
absolutely.
anywhere. So I'm
Absolutely.
working to build to that concept where Maya is at now, where like I can do it anywhere.
You
And
can.
one of my goals is to I have goals for like just being still in the States where I don't want to just stay in Michigan. I want to have a place in Michigan. I want to have a place in Colorado. I want to have a place in St. Thomas. And from there, I've always told people, if I wake up one day and say, I want to go visit this place for like a week, I can do that and I can still
Amen.
work. I can still
Amen.
do everything that I need to do. And so I do think, I was just talking about this on another podcast. There is a country that introduced a program where the government pays the artist, painters, sculptors, physical art to create art. They have a salary.
Sure.
And this is not like commission or anything. This is just their salary to do nothing but do what they want to do in the first place. And in
Absolutely.
2 years, that program paid itself back and earned money.
Hmm.
There's another country that just made period products free for all women because
Right.
it's a medical necessity.
Absolutely.
Um, there's countries out there that have free healthcare.
There is.
There,
There is.
there are even countries that we don't like that are authoritative dictatorship things. There's things that they're doing technology wise that are
Absolutely. Absolutely.
crazy in advance. I saw
Absolutely.
I saw a study about China, terrible run country, but there was a study about how they were falling behind in the technological game and they decided to make a concerted effort to up their game, and they have stores now where you buy your things, walk out the store, it has your card information on it, it knows who you are, it knows what you got, and they're making and paving ways for technology that we aren't even thinking about
Yeah,
yet.
yeah. And Gabby, I would challenge the point you made about China being not being a well-run country. And I would
Mhm.
ask you, why do you say that? Because when I
I
look at
mean
the criteria between China and the US, when I look at it like you talked about, right?
yeah.
They're now leading in renewable energy technologies and clean energy technologies. They're leading in rare earth elements. They have
Mhm.
the largest supply. They graduate more engineers and scientists than we do. So it may be
I guess I
common as
mean morally.
okay,
Morally, not
okay.
a there we go,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, but look at our president.
I mean, I
Look at our nation today.
and and that is another, like, really great topic about where when we look at ourselves is that, everybody is "Make America Great Again," and I love the concept was like, "When? When was it great? Let
Man, was
me
it great?
let
Right.
me know. Look me in
Them,
my face," and I'm a big, like, "Look me in my face and tell me when
yeah.
it was
But
great,"
what they're
because
really
look at
saying is make it white again. Okay.
right,
That's
which
what
is
they're really saying.
and the problem is that what is happening right now is that we're not valuing education.
Agreed.
We're not
Agreed.
valuing diversity, which has been proven to show and create
The opposite.
better companies.
Absolutely.
We aren't valuing technology, and we're not only are we not valuing technology, but we're exploiting it in a way that only benefits, again, these big companies, and we don't want to
Absolutely.
give access to other people.
Absolutely.
Um, we don't want to put the right people in the positions because they're afraid of, oh, they're going to take my spot. Nobody can take your spot if you're the smartest person in the room. Like, let's just be clear.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Nobody can take your spot if you are doing the work to be the
That's right.
smartest person
That's
in
right.
the room.
That's right. That's right.
And we don't value, like, even with this current government, there is no value on education. They don't want you to be educated.
They do not. No
They
incentive.
like it's
No incentive.
very clear. There's no incentive for you to get smart. And in fact, most of what Trump ran on was about targeting lower class white people because to make them feel better. I love true crime. And John Douglas is like I think his name is John Douglas, like one of the biggest names in true crime. He helped create criminal profiling. So the ones that like went to the places to interview people.
I see.
And there's a book he wrote. One of the first books I read was about a racial serial killer. He was a sniper, and he examined why white people create racial crimes. And the first one, which is what we're seeing right now, is that they felt inadequate in their life. They felt like they weren't living up to where they thought they would be. And
Absolutely.
and and because our brains are hardwired to first sadly, our brains are hardwired to first excuse ourselves from the blame.
Mhm.
They cannot put the blame on themselves or think of
Themselves.
something that they do. So they
Right.
externalize this, which is why
Absolutely.
most of these
Scapegoat.
are right, which is why most of these are men, because if you look in psychology, most men externalize and most women internalize.
That's correct.
Um, and so then they have to find a reason why they aren't getting to where they're going.
That's correct.
why they aren't as successful as they are. And the reason can't be them. So they latch on to some other racial group or concept that makes them feel like if they were gone, if they didn't exist, if this was fixed, I
They're
could
like
get
you better.
to right. And that is what Trump used.
Yes, he did and does. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Gabby, that's an old playbook. I mean, if you look at throughout the
Mhm.
centuries, those who are in power have always used that strategy, especially when
Mhm.
people are struggling and they're in pain and they're not sure about the future. Give them a scapegoat. Give them somebody they can blame, right? And
Mhm.
they'll blame that person all day long, and they will go to the extremes like they did, like you said, Nazi Germany. Okay, they will kill people, right? They will put people in internment camps. It will go to that extreme. So history has shown that's the case.
And the interesting thing is that we forget that when right now we're creating internment camps and people are just turning a blind eye to it. But it's not the
Absolutely,
first time America's created an internment camp.
not at all, not at all, not at all.
I did not know that until I was listening to a podcast. It was Dark History, and
Mhm,
they talked about the Japanese and Asian internment camps that we
absolutely. World War II.
created.
Mhm,
Mhm. And I
absolutely.
was when Robert, when I found out, I was shocked. Like I was literally shocked.
How
Like
old were
there's
you? How old were you when you found it out?
4 years ago.
So
If
so imagine, and you're on top of your game. Imagine young people who are not on top of their game, who will
mhm.
never learn those facts like you've learned. Think what
That's
impact
and
that has.
it's so I mean, I learned and I wanna get back to listening to that podcast, but some of the episodes get a little weird for me, and I'm just like,
Yeah, I
But
understand.
I learned so much. Having someone tell me the truth about history,
Mhm.
um, and the truth about what's going on around the world. I learned that birth control was, which I could have figured out, was created as a way to prevent poor people and people of color from
That's correct.
procreating because they thought that they were lesser than and they didn't want their world to be messed up. And I learned that they actually tested this without telling the Puerto Rican women what they were doing.
They sure
They
did.
tested it illegally on Puerto Rican women. And, people are like, why do people have so much distrust in the government? And it's like, it's right here.
Government has shown that it can't be trusted. It has shown time and time again that it can't be trusted.
So tying all of this into kind of the bigger topic and bringing, both of your worlds kind of together, do you think that, and I talked about this in the last podcast about financial freedom, do you think that building your own businesses is a way to break away from the control of the political climate?
So that's a great question, Gabby. And I go back to the first book I wrote that was published in 1993. It was
Mhm,
called Black Wealth Through Black Entrepreneurship. That was
mhm,
my first book. And that book was based upon some research I did in graduate school at the
mhm,
Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth College. And there I looked at the correlation between entrepreneurship, right, and wealth creation. There is certainly a direct correlation between successful businesses that are owned by women and people of color
mhm,
and the shrinking of the wealth gap. Now, but I hasten to add, not
mhm,
everyone, Gabby, can be an entrepreneur. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur. Okay,
mm-mm,
but we certainly can have more participation than we have had before in the past, and even now. I mean, when I was doing my research in the '80s, I mean, Gabby,
mhm,
it was nothing, hardly anything that
mhm,
the African Americans, Latino American business people were doing. I mean, there were some things going on, but not like on the scale that it is now. So we've come a long way, and we're making progress. But there's no doubt in my mind there's a correlation between successful entrepreneurship and closing the wealth gap. In my company that I've created, I've hired people of color. I mean, we're a diverse company, so don't get me wrong.
mhm,
But what's interesting though, Gabby, is that
mhm,
now I'm hiring not only my original employees' children, but
mhm,
their children. So we're
mhm.
talking
And
about
you're
three.
keeping it
Great. That's right. three generations of people of color who are benefiting from a seed that was planted by Bob Wallace and Carolyn Wallace 40 years ago. They're
Mhm.
benefiting. They have jobs. They have careers. They're buying homes. They're sending their kids to college. See, now, if you take that and you multiply it by 10 million or 10 billion,
Mhm.
that's the impact that we can have if we build successful businesses. We're working now with some HBCU colleges and helping them to transform their economic reality because you probably know most
Mhm.
colleges, especially HBCUs, have very, very little endowment money. Very little
Mhm.
endowment money. Harvard and Yale and Penn and Dartmouth, they got billions, right? But you look
Mhm.
at a lot of HBCUs and even small college universities, they have very small endowment. Endowments is what grows these colleges. If we don't
Mhm.
grow those endowments for these schools, they're going to go out of business. Then what will happen, Gabby? Then what will happen then? So the ripple effect is pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
There were some points that you made that were really interesting. There's this one point. I'm also not a big fan of Beyonce. A lot of people are. I'm not.
Not either. We're very similar.
Oh, okay, good. I just for lack of better term, I peep game. And to me, I peep people who say that they're doing something for the culture but aren't actually doing
Yeah,
anything
I
for
understand.
the culture. And when you mentioned endowments, there was this big thing about how Beyonce giving, I think it was something like 500 grand to HBCU. And then you realize that went spread over so many different schools that at that point it was kind of like, how much, I mean, is it helping? Yeah, but how much help is it doing? Are you
That's
still
how
doing
basic.
this?
So we
How
have
much help?
107. We have 107 HBCUs, Gabby. So you take that
Yeah.
if she did across all those, what's that? 50,000 a school. I mean, whatever it is. I mean,
Yeah,
5,000.
like yeah,
I
like
mean,
how it's what are right, because I think that and I don't remember exactly how much. I think it was probably less than 500,000, but I don't remember how much it was, but it broke down to something like the schools that she chose got about 5 to $10,000. And for me, that'd be life-changing, but for them, that keeps the lights on for a month.
absolutely. It would have been
And
better to do it
so
to one school.
to
Quite
once and I but here's the thing is that, we don't see that perspective of like, "Oh, Beyonce is doing this thing," but she's really just doing it to she gave it to many schools so that many schools can see her and thank her instead of
mm,
giving it to one school where it
yeah,
could have done so much good for that one
it's
school,
good.
and then the next year gave it to another, you know what I mean? Like,
I do. I
Beyonce's a
do.
billionaire.
I do. To whom much is given, much is required. That's what the Bible tells us.
Right.
And all of us, to whatever degree we can, ought to give to help. And so, but I don't know her intent with that, Gabby, but I agree with you that it would have been better just to give it to one school and had greater impact. You know what I mean? But,
And
you know,
so there's kind of, that concept of and I hate to say this, but there are some people in our community specifically who are doing things not because it's the right thing to do or they're truly trying to help, but they're doing things to get visibility so someone can see them doing it to
I
make
see.
them look good. And that to me, that's just not true charity. True charity, whether I'm not religious myself, but was raised on religious concepts and I was
You
raised on,
saying that,
right and wrong. And my father taught me all about, true charity. And it's not something that you do to get noticed.
right?
And I've always paid attention to the celebrities who have made the biggest kind of like stink about
Yeah,
where they're giving money to because
yeah,
they're usually doing it for you to pay attention and not
yeah.
because they really want to. The
One of
second
the
thing
best
sorry,
examples
go
has
ahead.
been Denzel Washington.
Mhm,
Study his giving pattern. That man's
mhm.
amazing. And you never hear about it. He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't he just does it. But anyway, you were
Mhm.
gonna say something, Gabby.
I first of all, I love that. My dad is a huge Denzel Washington fan, so I can't wait
So
to
am
go
I.
home and tell him
So
that.
am
But the second thing you talked about, we were talking about your first book, and you noticed that like, minorities and there's a lot of studies of women in color are leading the way in
they are.
entrepreneurship and creating businesses. And I mean, I even see it just in a microcosm of me being here in this co-working space of how many women run businesses I see around me and how many
You bet.
women are running the co-working space and running all these events.
You bet.
I've been labeled as a man hater. I take some of that responsibility on my own. I don't think of the joke is that my parents are like, "That's not who you are." People you say wild stuff, but they don't know, like, where your heart is coming from, and when you're saying it, you're just calling out behavior. But I've stated still that whether you think that I hate men or not, I don't. I just call out the negative behavior of them. I actually want them to succeed and grow. And while Black women are doing that, sadly, not as many Black men are doing it. And I want to talk to you because you're a Black man and you've built businesses and brands. How do we get Black men to get to that level as well?
Well, I think first, Gabby, we need to make it a priority. Okay,
Mhm,
there's no question. Look, I've raised 4 men.
mhm,
My oldest son is 48. My youngest is 35, and my
mhm,
daughter's 32. She's a baby. I've raised men. I've raised nephews. I've raising grandkids and helping to raise grandkids now, males. Right.
mhm,
This this society is very fearful of Black men.
mhm,
There's no mistake that you look in our prisons and you find, I mean, we're only Black men, maybe what 7% of the population in the U.S. make up about half of the population in the prisons. So
mhm,
this mass incarceration internment camp thing is real.
mhm,
So we need to focus, and I think that part of it is we need to mentor a lot of these young men who don't have the fathers that I had, that you had, right? Who
mhm,
can guide them. Men need to be guided. Men need to be mentored. And
mhm,
in the absence of a mentor, they're going to turn to the street. They're going to turn to what's easy. And that's what's
mhm.
happening too much, too frequently in our country. So I think, Gavin, we need to focus on the men. The women are doing fantastic. I mean, women struggle too. I mean, sexism is a real
We have our issues.
your own issues, But you're right though, Gabby. Black women are just like taking off. They're running. They're the majority now in college education. They're enjoying in salaries. I mean,
Mhm,
so they're rolling. So we got to focus on the men because the men come under attack the most in this society. I mean, look at the TV, look at the
mhm,
news. If you don't have somebody who can counter that, like your dad, that can
mhm.
counter that narrative, then this kid's gonna grow up believing, hey, I'm nothing, I'm never gonna be nothing. So why even try? I think that has to change.
I agree with you. I'm not gonna pretend like I don't contribute to the narrative sometimes, but I don't do it from a way of like like I said, I'm always honest, I'm always real, even when because I think that that's the way to grow is to be honest and real, even with yourself. And none of us are perfect. But I've always tried to do it. I can't mentor a man. I can't.
That's
I'm
correct.
because I'm not a man. I cannot relate to you and the struggles that you relate the same way you can't relate to me to the struggles.
That's
What I
correct.
do try to do is call out the behavior and hope that in calling out the behavior, it spikes like a reflection. But
You bet.
I was on a podcast and recording a different podcast, and sadly, I have to re-record it because it didn't come out. But I remember this guy was kind of attacking me for my beliefs and things, and he was like, "Well, how do you want Black men to change?" And I was like, "We need to do the work. We need to, just like what you said, we need to take them under our wing and stop making, this is a problem with media and not even just like the news outlet, but what TV shows do we have
You bet.
out in the world?
You bet.
What are they I mean, and even, for Black women, there's an issue there too, but there are a lot more TV shows now that are showing successful single Black women, right?
Yes. Or yes.
There aren't a lot of TV shows that show successful single Black men without the drama.
That is correct. I totally agree with you. But it reminds me, Gabby, of a show I did some time ago. They were interviewing me on the show, and they
Mhm,
had another. Well, it was a woman. I forget her name, and I wouldn't. If I remember, I wouldn't say it. But she was
mhm,
saying she was saying there are no good Black men. And I said to
mhm,
her, I said, "Why do you say that?" She said, "Because everyone that I've dated, they did this." I said, "Well, okay." Restate that. Be careful the words that you use. For you to
mhm,
say there are no good Black men, what you should say is, none of the men that I have dated have been good men. Okay, so you can say that. But to say
mhm.
that there are no good Black men, that's like saying there are no good Black women. right? You
Yeah.
careful the words that you use, right?
I will
Because
say that
that
we
impact.
as women, we have I have the same problem. I made a statement about me not dating black men, and no one heard what I was trying to say. They
Uh-huh.
only heard that part, right?
Right. I
And
can
and I
imagine.
mean, it made for good social media
Yeah,
clicks,
and it
but
did.
they missed the part where I've said I love black men. I wanted to have black men. I wanted to raise black men. I'm always supporting black men. But one, as a black female, I felt not as supported. And two, it's not that I don't think that I want this to be clear for everybody here. I think there are amazing black men out there. I meet them
Mhm.
every day. I think that in this dating, especially younger black men in my generation, what's going on. I was talking on another podcast about people like Andrew Tate that a lot of black men started really looking up to, created this negative dating experience.
Mm,
And for me, I don't want to, and I'm not dating at all to be like, it's not just black men now. I'm just not dating, period, right now. I don't want to go through the 7 steps that would it take. I don't have the energy in me right now to go through however many steps it would
got
take to
got
find
got you.
the good black man. And
Uh,
what I said I hope is that those good black men that are out there, if we're talking about mentorship, I hope that they can start calling out the behavior and be taking their friends that they see. Because one of
right.
the things that I've noticed is that, especially in my generation and younger generations, is that they allow the behavior of their friends to continue to go on, even though they know it's not right. They know it's not moral. There's not a, I think that one of the reasons that women may be getting closer is women check women, maybe too much. And moms checked women, like my mom checked me a lot about things, right? But my friends will be the first people to check me. If I'm do My coworker literally told me the other day, she's like, "You can't work 4 days. You get too crazy when you work
Yeah,
4 days. You're
sure.
not yourself."
We know,
And
Gabby, I had to check this lady on the show. I mean,
I mean, yeah.
in a loving way. 'Cause my point was, okay, so you're saying all the black men you've dated have been bums. What does
Mhm.
that say about your judgment in picking men? So
And you
so
know what?
so I wasn't attacking her, Gabby, but I was just saying, wait a minute, you have to own this thing, right? And-
No, I agree with you because I've had to own my own shit.
right.
And that's where
That's
I
right.
think that the understanding, because people, social media is real. That's one of the things people comment. Well, maybe it's the people that you're dating. You're absolutely right. It was 100% the people that I was dating. Going back to our earlier topic, because I didn't grow up in a household where I saw love exhibited
Understood.
every day.
Understood.
100% was the people I was dating. I wasn't picking people that were good for me. I picked people because they were drama. I picked people because I
Right.
was afraid of attachment.
Got you.
Like I will, so you were, in a sense, I can understand her point because it is frustrating when women try to call out behavior and the response is, well, it's just who you're dating.
Sure.
But on your side though, yeah, as women, we do have to take part of the blame for some of this.
Absolutely. But
Like,
Gabby, you said it. You said calling out the behavior. That's fine. But what she had done, Gabby, it's gone beyond calling out the
was
behavior
attacked black men
and
specifically.
extrapolated to that there are
Mhm.
no good black men
And I
because
don't,
the behavior she saw in these few men that she was dating. You know? Like,
and
wait,
I don't think you can ever make that generalization about
you can
anybody,
you
anywhere,
should.
anytime.
That's right. That's correct.
That You're right. That generalization is so damaging, and it comes from the same where all black men are criminals. That's not
Right.
true.
Exactly right. That's right. That's right.
All black women are drama. That's not true. I truly, in my life, I try to aspire to have no drama. Like I just want peace. But when you make it a statement that it's all of them, that is when it becomes, and I think that's the difference between saying men and all men to me. And people get that confused when you say men, because men is sadly, because of the patriarchy, men's a concept
Sure.
and not
Sure.
necessarily a person. But when you
Sure.
say all men, you are
All right.
making it personal.
But but Gabby, I've had to put some brothers in their place too, in the same way, where they would
Hmm.
say, "Well, I don't date black women because black women are XYZ." Da, da, da. I said, "Wait a
Hmm.
minute, bro. Okay, Ibaki-san, how can you say all black women are this just because what you experienced when these three women you did had that behavior? Deal with the behavior, but not the whole
Right.
group. Don't group
Right.
everybody in the same way. So we've got to be careful what they say.
I agree, and that's conversations that me and my parents have had with me and being like, "Hey, we know what you mean, but, like, be more cautious with your words. Instead of
Yes,
saying
yes,
men, say some men or the ones that I've encountered or I'm not
exactly.
dating," and explain it more. But to
I
go back to
agree.
the topic, I agree that one of the things that I said is that I want men to have mentorship. I want men to be held accountable because I want them to get better, and you cannot get better until you really look at yourself in the mirror and realize what things that you are doing wrong.
Amen.
I had to look in the mirror and be like, "What am I doing wrong?" But also, like, what in me contributes to the stereotypes that limit myself, and how
Mm,
do I fix those, right? And Black people in general have to be a little bit more hyper vigilant of our personalities because we already have these stereotypes on, and it's not fair. I can't get mad at a store, even if
right.
the person is reacting to me really wild, and I don't. Because I've made the choice that that's not what I wanna put out into the world. Not everybody else can put whatever they
That's
want.
right. That's
I
right.
made the choice that I'm just gonna walk away.
Right.
For instance, if I'm paying for something and it was supposed to be on sale and they're fussing about me and they're like, "It's not gonna sell," I'm just gonna be like, I already put in my thing. I got the money. I'm just gonna pay for it. I'm not gonna argue with you. Imma go to this leave out the store, and I'm not coming back to this one."
Right. Amen.
Um, I think that all of us can benefit from mentorship, examining ourselves. And I think that one of the biggest things, again, that probably caters to women, and I said this in another podcast, how sad I am that men don't feel like they can be a little bit more whimsical, or men feel like they have to be more in this structure. And one of the things that women have done through World War One and World War Two and women's suffrage is that we've been intentionally working to break away from the structure.
Sure.
And I really hope that men can do the same,
Right. Right.
um, because then I think that we all benefit from it. I want more companies run by Black men. I think that it could be really beneficial, like truly run. Again, Jay-Z is also not my favorite. He created a title which was supposed to be a Black run company, then hired a whole bunch of white people. That was frustrating. But like truly ran Black men, like what you and your wife are doing, right? Because then you create systems where you can mentor young men and
Absolutely.
you can show them what life could really look like.
Absolutely.
And if
Yes,
we have more of those things, then we create positively, to everything else.
we do. Totally agree. Absolutely.
And so I think that, we're kind of closing on everything that we're talking about. I love what you said about entrepreneurship and how you're right, not everybody is. I know this firsthand as dealing with and trying to help people because a part of what I did before I started doing this was some consulting work and working as a project manager for creatives because I have both. My mom's a project manager and I'm a creative and I got her project managing skills. So I'm lucky because I have both.
I see.
But there's some people who can't, and that's okay
It's okay.
because then what you could do is you could align yourself with a company that matches your morals, your values, that has a culture that you believe in and want, and that still is positively, contributing to the culture.
It does. Absolutely. That's a good lesson to learn.
Yeah. But I do think that having more brands and businesses that look like you, wherever that be, for us, obviously it's Black people, Afro Caribbean people. For some people, that's East Asian or Samoan or Australia, whatever. Having more companies that have people leading it looks like you helps to create and remind people that the idea is that you can do it too.
Absolutely. One of my books that I haven't released it yet is called Global Entrepreneurship. It is based upon a 6-month trip my wife and I took to go around the world, right? And visit these countries. And what we have found, there's so many findings from the research, but one thing I found was that the global South is generating the highest number of entrepreneurs on the planet. And these tend to be, people of color, right? Indian, Asian, African, Caribbean, Afro, Brazilian. I mean, it's just an amazing, amazing thing. So stay tuned for that book too. But we're going to get out the Overcomer book first, though, before we focus on that one.
Okay. Well, while we are coming to a close, I want to make sure that people know where to find you and know where to support you and get your books. So can you let everybody know where to do all of that?
Sure. So they can always visit www.robertwallace.com. That's my name.com. That's the first place to start. And then from that launching pad, you can get to our IT company, which is www.bithgroup.com. That's
Mhm.
B is boy, ITH group.com. And then they can launch from there also to the energy company, which is does solar and wind. And that's bithenergy.com. So those are the ways they can get to me, Gabby. I travel a lot, but I'm always glad to talk to people like you and to provide any kind of insight I can give to our
Mhm.
community.
And you're also on social media, correct?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, to LinkedIn, Instagram. So we got we have a Substack articles that we write, provide. We have a newsletter we send out. So there's a
Mhm.
couple ways to get to us.
And Substack is I use Substack as well, and I've read some of your stuff, and I think that they're amazing. So you guys definitely have to check them out on there. And Substack is quickly becoming one of my favorite social medias because it's a quiet
Yes,
social media,
it is. I love
and
it
it's
too.
an educating social media, and you
Yes.
actually get to see that people are actually thinking
That's
in
right.
this
People,
world.
amen. Amen. That is so true.
So yeah, guys, make sure that you check out his website, follow him. I'll make sure to include all of those links in there so they know where to find you. And Robert, thank you so much for joining me today. Loved our conversation. Can the podcast sometimes can be a little silly and a little off, and I love having conversations with people that ground me and my purpose and what I'm really trying to do, and having a conversation with you about what's really going on and how we can change that felt like a grounding aspect to me. So thank you. I really
Excellent.
appreciate that.
You're quite welcome. Excellent. I enjoyed it. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you. Have a great day and bye guys.
Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Gabby Gabs Podcast.